let us get things started a little bit with a little bit of news and a little bit analyzing some numbers. And I've got the hat to match the jersey. That's right, I'm so happy I got the hat. Anyways, as proud as I am to have the hat to match the jersey, and it is just as stunning as I hoped it would be, let's discuss some slow starts. So because the news is a little scant today for the most part, because, hey, nobody's playing today. But I'm going to do the preview video today because why not? And then tomorrow, there's a live stream for patrons at the $5 level and above, and we'll discuss some other stuff going on as well in terms of live streams at some other time. But let's look at some slow starts. Now, Sam Steele and Troy Terry, both of them have played 4 games for Anaheim, and both with 0 points. But they've both looked relatively good, and since Anaheim's off to a fast start, I don't think it's going to hurt them. Jake DeBrusk putting up points like Louis DeBrusk, 0 points in 4 games. David Backes has never, to me, fit in with Boston. I've never seen it. And this year's no different. 0 points in 4 games. But again, Boston off to a good start, so that just hides all this. Casey Middlestad, 1 point, and it's an assist in 4 games for Buffalo. Skinner, 0 points in 4 games for Buffalo. Skinner is very streaky. He could get 2 hat tricks over the next 2 games and then go silent for another 5. This is why Carolina fans got frustrated with him. This is why I got frustrated with him as a guy who cheered for Carolina at times. Brandon Saad, 1 assist in 4 games. There was talk before the season about Saad lacking the competitive nature you need to remain at the top in the NHL. And I haven't got into that, but we'll see how he does this year, and then we can discuss that further. In Detroit, Thomas Vanek, 0 points in 4 games for him. So there's a free agent signing that we may see as a rental sooner than we thought. Detroit's off to a 4-game winless start, and Vanek doesn't have a point. Jonathan Drouin, who is being counted on to step up his game, no points for him in 3 games. Bonino and Fiala for Nashville, both of them pointless in 4 games, but Fiala does have 10 shots on goal. So Fiala's getting close. He's getting in and around the net. He's just not getting the goals. Jordan Eberle, no points in 3 games. Konechny, 1 point in 4 games. Of course, he's being expected by Philly to step up his game. And Patrick, who is, potentially dealing with injury and whatnot. I saw him on the day-to-day the other day, but he's played every game so far. He's also a -5. So Nolan Patrick, slow start, and he had a slow start last year, and maybe he's just going to be one of those guys who starts slow. In the news, Austin Watson's suspension was shortened by an arbitrator from 27 games to 18. The NHL has already come out and said they were disappointed by this reduction of the suspension from 27 to 18 games. 18's a weird number. That seems very arbitrary. It's not 20, it's not 15, it's 18. Just like the NHL suspension of 27 games. It just seems really odd to me. So I don't know, and I'm fine with it. It's whatever it is. Honestly, here's my opinion on it. If something happened with Watson, and if and I really have to tiptoe around this. If there's anybody that needs help out of the situation, I hope they get it. There, that's the best way of putting it. If you're a Senators fan, turn your ears off for about 10 seconds here, as CC, Dzingel, and Formenton have all been placed on the injured reserve, which means they miss a minimum of a week. Ta-da! So Ottawa off to a relatively decent start, and ta-da! CC, although Cody CC I could have had on this board too. He hasn't had a point yet either. Dzingel's had 4 though. Formenton hasn't had a point either, but he's a rookie. Montreal practice this morning. It looks like Plekanec is going to make his season debut tomorrow on the 4th line for Montreal. So that's good news for Montreal fans and for Plekanec, who wants his 1,000th game as a member of the Montreal Canadiens. But he is getting to that point in his career where he's not going to play every night. And the big news is Morgan Rielly. I feel bad for the kid. And I know that's really hard to say because he's got 12 points in 5 games. How can you feel bad for him? Because on every site I'm looking at right now, he's being talked about with Bobby Orr. He's not Bobby Orr. Now, the 12 points in 5 games means he has passed Bobby Orr's 11 points in 5 games. And then it's like TSN said he's number 2 on the list. They didn't say who was number 1. And then I go to Sportsnet. Sportsnet's like, Harry Cameron's number 1 of the Toronto Arenas from 1917. But they didn't say what he got, so I had to dig. And I dug, and then I looked on the NHL site. I'm like, right. The NHL just updated all of its records, and it's there. Harry Cameron, with the Toronto Arenas. It was actually the Toronto Blue Shirts. They didn't get the arena's name until after 1917. Look at the history video. It's in there. He had 9 goals, 6 assists, 15 points in those 5 games. 9 goals. That's a defenseman. That's insane. He actually wound up with 17 goals, 10 assists, and 21 games that year. So, by extension, that means that Rielly's going to hit about 100 points this year. Who knows? The one interesting thing, Morgan Rielly doesn't want to talk about this because he doesn't want to jinx it, is that both Harry Cameron and Bobby Orr are in the Hall of Fame. So go ahead and discuss that. And, this is a big coming out party for Morgan Rielly. I don't expect him to end up with 90 or 100 points. But you know what? 70? We could hit 70. Because all he has to do to hit 70 is get 58 from here. He could hit 58. And then does he get consideration for the Norris? The Toronto defense has looked a little suspect, but how much of that is him and how much of that is 51? And some other guys. I don't place that on him, but it could affect whether or not he gets Norris votes. If Toronto's defense doesn't really buckle down and get it figured out, allowing about 4 goals a game could hurt his chances of being a Norris contender. But it's worthy of note because, yes, we're very early in the season, but that's an incredible start for him. So for Morgan Rielly, great start, and I'm not going to jinx him. And on Sportsnet 360 this morning, they had an interview with Jim Benning and Francesco Aquilini, and Aquilini is a very respected man in Vancouver. I'm just kidding. Aquilini, who is blamed for everything that is wrong with the Canucks, unless you hate Jim Benning or you hated Mike Gillis. I look at where the Canucks are, and I'm going to give my honest opinion here. The Canucks, under Brian Burke, built a team that then Dave Nonis kept around, and Nonis added Luongo. Then Mike Gillis came in after, and Gillis had this core that was one of the best teams in the league, and they went back-to-back President's Trophies, and he decided to keep it together. And at that point, how do you keep it together, and how do you keep it under a salary cap? You give out no trade clauses. So he gave guys a little below market value with no trade clauses, and Canucks fans said, this is great, Gillis is brilliant, this is awesome. And then those players all turned out to be having career years, or they had peaked and they were on the downside, and then because of no trade clauses, it was more difficult to move them and get back what you wanted. Or these guys could say, well, we're only going there. Like Ryan Kessler said, I'm only going to Anaheim. So, Gillis was left in a tough spot. The Canucks start falling, and then Benning comes in, and he's had to kind of clean things up. And, the Canucks were clinging to 2011 after they lost that Game 7. I don't think that team ever got over it. And by that team, I mean the fans. And there may be players on the team that 10, 15 years from now in an interview will say we never really overcame that Game 7 loss at home against Boston. But there's fans that really clung to the idea that this is a Stanley Cup winner. This team's going to win a Stanley Cup. And that core was kept together when it probably shouldn't have been. And some really hard decisions needed to be made. And those are the things that separate what the Canucks did in 2011 from what the Blackhawks and the Kings did when they won multiple Stanley Cups. You have to make those difficult decisions. Benning has now been forced to make those difficult decisions, and Benning's been left with a team that really wasn't great when he took over. It made the playoffs, yes, but they were on their way down. And the Canucks right now have the best crop of prospects they've ever had. And I know it's a low bar and blah, blah, blah. But Gillis's drafting was awful. And Mike Gillis, interestingly enough, came out for an interview the other day as well. And he talked about his time in Vancouver and how he would be willing to come back and work for Vancouver in some form if certain conditions were met. And I hear that and I think, I don't think the Canucks are going to call Gillis. But Gillis was a very successful player agent. So if he ever decided to go back to that, I honestly think there would be players that would say, yeah, we would love to see Gillis as an agent. But, the Canucks, as much as I talk about Montreal and Ottawa, the Canucks are a tire fire of a different fashion. Okay? This is just a collapse that has continued for years. Montreal's tire fire was that players got traded off and they didn't get enough back. Ottawa's is that they've just made disastrous decision after disastrous decision, and they seem to just keep downgrading their roster. Vancouver, it's everybody got old and they couldn't replace them. So the guys that left, you either got less back than you'd like, or you didn't get anything back for them. So that's where the Canucks were at with this. Is it a tire fire? Yeah. Is it as bad? I would argue no. But again, I have very limited expectation with Vancouver. Right now they're 2-2. I don't know. That's news to me, and they have a shot to go over 500 if they can beat Florida tomorrow. So I don't know. And that looks like it could be a winnable game right now. So I don't know what to make of it. But I will say this, I do believe that you give Benning another year, maybe 2, to see if the team's going to start pulling through. And you look at how Pettersson's played so far this year. No slow start for Pettersson on this board. 7 points in 4 games is pretty impressive. And yeah, maybe he crops out at game 40. Maybe at the end of the year he only has 45 or 50 points. But there's some hope in Vancouver. So that's just my opinion on this. And Aquilini states he's completely on board with the rebuild, because what else is he going to say at this point? And he didn't want to talk about the Linden thing. So for anybody like, what did he say about Trevor Linden? Nothing. He just said, out of respect for Linden and the situation and the team, I'm not going to say anything, which means there was a big argument. And I still agree that Linden probably wanted to take a longer term look, and Aquilini was probably like, maybe Aquilini's opinion is this: we're gonna have one more year of a rebuild, and then we want to be back in the playoffs the next year. And Linden said, I can't do that, or I can't guarantee that. We don't know. We can all speculate. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, how do you feel about Morgan Rielly's fantastic start? Do these 3 players being in the injured reserve for Ottawa hurt them further, or does this give a chance for somebody else to step up and shine? Where's Duchesne? He hasn't had a goal yet. I could have put him on the board, but he's got 2 assists, so I thought, I'm not going to put him on the board yet, but he could be on the board the next time I do this. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through just having fun this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.